who had gone missing when she was a teenager. And her dad was kind of a kooky chemist kind of guy who was into some questionable stuff. And she falls in with some drug-dealing alchemist and eventually finds her dad, who has wound up in a nursing home, who has in a catatonic state. So she initially goes out with this kind of personal mission, and she winds up getting a job working as a geologist and kind of looking at some of the unusual facets of the park. And she runs across just kind of a strange cast of characters that are kind of evolving through the book. There's one character in this book who is the bartender for the town. There is a church in the town that has stood for a couple of centuries. And an enterprising fellow decided that he was going to go ahead and turn this into a bar, because what else would you do with a church that no one attends? So he's kind of a supernatural creature as well, and he makes an appearance in this book.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the father, you said, is a chemist. Was he making crystals in an RV somewhere in the middle of the desert? Or am I thinking of a whole different thing?
Some of his contemporaries actually were. He actually realized that he was suffering from Alzheimer's and was trying to find an alchemical cure. He was kind of curious about alchemy himself, became quite an accomplished alchemist, but then kind of wound up imprisoned in his own head.
Sure. Well, I guess I should let's go back up a little bit, because it just popped into me in our Facebook chat. What the heck is alchemy? What is alchemy?
Ah, okay. Alchemy was the forerunner of modern chemistry. There were a bunch of people over the centuries and actually thousands of years who have wanted two primary things, and these are things that we still really want in the modern world. First is gold. People were trying to figure out how to turn a base metal or just an ordinary rock and turn it into gold. That was kind of one of the first aims of alchemy. And the second was to achieve immortal life. So there was the idea that with the Philosopher's Stone, one could accomplish one or both of these goals. So a lot of the men and women who were alchemists all the way through the Middle Ages were developing a lot of the scientific techniques that we use today in laboratories, and kind of accidentally hit upon some of the enduring properties of minerals and did a lot of cataloging and recording of these things. And the kind of the mystical aspect of it kind of fell away.
So they're kind of like the forerunners of today's chemists.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Because alchemy, I'm looking at it. Wow, it's been around a long time, and they're pretty wow, they knew a lot back then, because I stumbled upon the alchemy website, and it's even used to this day. Alchemy.
Well,
in psychological sense, yes.
Isaac Newton was an alchemist.
Yes.
Exactly.
Everyone
the
was.
Queen of England had one.
Sure. I mean, it's still surviving to this day. So that is super, super cool that you're able to bring this ancient art into the book and really make it a key player of the book as well. It's almost like its own character in a lot of ways.
It is, and each book kind of, as a theme, deals with one of the 7 alchemical processes. The alchemists believed that you had to go through these 7 processes to purify the base metal and to turn it into gold. And it's kind of useful to have kind of a thematic shorthand. I'm working on a book right now that's dealing with the fermentation stage of alchemy, which is when everything rots. So I get to deal with rotting, really disgusting monsters, and I can't wait for that.
Yay! No, it sounds like a hoot and a holler, but did you have to study alchemy in preparation? Did you have to, dive right into it, or do you just kind of, look it up as you go?
Alchemy is one of those subjects I've been really into for a long period of time. I love to curate books about the weird and the strange, particularly if they have some historical significance. So I do have a bunch of Easter eggs in the book about historical alchemists. Many of the characters are named after them. And only a few readers have actually caught on to that to this point, which is a lot of fun. But, I always wanted to write a book about alchemy. I thought, well, maybe I could do a historical book, but that would probably be kind of boring and probably wouldn't gather that many readers. And then that was kind of boiling in the back of my head at a kind of a low simmer for a while. And then when I went and I saw Yellowstone, I thought, this is the place. This is the place where I can connect that idea of alchemy with this setting.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to learn how to make gold. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine that, making your own gold?
One of the appeals, I think, of alchemy is that it has such a long history, and even now to this day, as you said, kind of when you were your first words about, okay, so what is alchemy? To this day, it's kind of like just out of reach. Well, maybe we just need to know a little bit more, and then we really will be able to transform lead into gold, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's something that retains its allure throughout the centuries. It's not something that really becomes that dated. I think that's part of it, of the appeal.
Right, and these are two things that human beings have always wanted. We want wealth and we want to live forever, and those are timeless concepts, whether in literature or anywhere else. These have always motivated people, and it's just kind of interesting to see what people would have done in order to achieve it.
Yeah, you're right. That has been the motivation. Living forever, and wealth are the two things that we've all chased after, mankind, that is. Even today, we are still trying to figure out how to beat the clock and how to get richer, and so really things have not changed a whole lot over the years.
No, I don't think so. And in studying alchemy, I think that there is some merit also to looking at alchemy from a psychological perspective. I know that there are some people that believe that you can go through these 7 stages in a spiritual way and somehow achieve enlightenment by kind of shedding the physical constraints and the impurities that we kind of pick up being living creatures on Earth. And that's kind of an interesting viewpoint too. And I think alchemy has had kind of a renewed interest from that audience as well.
Mm. Yeah, I've noticed that more and more, especially in the paranormal circles, of course, alchemy making a comeback and purification and, things like that, that same mindset that they were having. We pick up junk as we go across this world. And
right, and sometimes you just need salt to clear it.
sometimes that's what you need. It's just a good old detoxification regimen. I believe that. I think that we all pick up our own junk as we go, and that's a really useful skill or useful mindset to have to detox and center oneself again.
Right, to get grounded and to reckon with whatever it is that we've picked up, make peace with it, eject it, and replace it with something better. And that's something that my characters try to do. I also kind of try to keep those psychological things in mind as they're moving along, because nobody gets through life unscathed.
No, you know what a great poet once said: "No one gets out of here alive."
Exactly.
Hey, we still have about 6-7 minutes before the bottom of the hour. Love to hear. We're always interested. I'm a writer myself. Always interested to hear about the writing process. Obviously, you were interested all along, and you had this reading habit, and you became a librarian, and so on and so forth, or at least got an advanced degree in it. So, how did you make that leap from being a reader to being a professional writer, and how did you choose this genre, kind of dark fantasy?
Wow, this is a question with a long answer. I guess I had never really thought that I could make a living as a writer, because I didn't know anybody who did. People that I grew up with, just had regular jobs and did regular things, so that's what I intended to do. I went into criminal justice, and I worked at our local jail for more than 10 years, and, but I was always writing on the side. I was always, wanting to create stories, and I wasn't really certain that anybody would really want to read them. But then I got a break, and I thought, wow, maybe somebody actually does want to read my creepy stories. What the heck? So I took a leap of faith and decided to try something new, and this is the something new. I've been published since 2010, and it's been kind of a wild ride. It has not been anything like I expected it to be, not at all. And some ways it's very much like a regular job. You've got to, set a schedule, and you got to meet deadlines, and you've got to, there's the same amount of frustrations and aggravations that go along with any other job that I've had. But this is really, I think, more of a labor of love than anything.
So you've been lucky enough to become a full-time writer. Do you have a day job, or is this it right here? This is what you become as a full-time novelist.
This is my job. This is my job.
You know how many people kill to have your job? And really, there's so many writers, other great writers, that I come in contact with, and they go, you never get rich writing books. You do it for the love.
True.
But, some do, obviously, and some do good enough to make a living out of it. I mean, I don't want you to give up your secrets, but what advice would you have for the would-be author out there right now? Hearing this going, man, but how do I break through?
Couple keys, I think. Productivity and flexibility. Productivity being that... I wish I had the level of brilliance that I could produce, a book a year and that was it, or a book every 2 years, and people would be throwing six-figure contracts at me, and that I wish that was my life.
Me too. I wish I had that life. That'd be awesome.
I know, but it's not, and I realize that I've got to produce, a lot of work on a regular basis. If need be, I have to be able to produce a book within months. To that end, I recommend folks try National Novel Writing Month. That's NaNoWriMo.org at least once. Get your book done, and then do it over again, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Mm-hmm. That's not just to say, vomit crap out on the page and hope somebody will buy it, but by doing, we increase our skill and we become stronger. And
Sure.
I really think that people need to push out of their comfort zones on that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That and flexibility. Once you sell your book to an editor, it becomes a team project.
Mm-hmm.
They will have preferences, and they will have things that they will want to do with the book, and you have to realize that my story has flown the nest. I have a group of people working on it now who have its best interests at heart, and I'm going to have to make changes.
Yeah, because I've met so many
accepting.
authors over the years that view their books, their works, like babies, like their children, and they have a hard time letting go to some extent and allowing the process to happen, almost to their own detriment at times. And I could see that, though. I mean, loving your art so much that you don't want it tampered with, but at the end of the day, it has to be improved upon, and that any great art will stand the test of time, including being improved upon.
I have, owed my bacon so many times to copy editors and proofreaders and content editors who have caught the most moronic mistakes or who have had suggestions for things that would work so much better. And I think when we get too close to our art, we can't see it, and we need other eyes, people who are going to be proxies for our readers who will say,
Sure.
Hey, that's dumb. Why do you have a penguin here on page 161? You're not in any place where there would be a penguin. And this is not a hallucination sequence.
Yeah. Well, how many rewrites do you go through? I mean, how, on average, the average author, how many rewrites are there to a book? From the idea to actual on the shelf.
Well, my progress is probably kind of weird. Writers, we talk about plotters and pantsers. And plotters are the people who plan beforehand, and pantsers are the people who go where the story takes them. Mm-hmm. And by necessity, I wind up being a plotter. So what I usually do is I work up a synopsis, about 3 to 5 pages about the book. And it kind of deals with the character arcs and the story arcs and just kind of a general, roadmap of where I want to go.
Okay.
And I take this to my agent or to my editor or whoever I'm working with at the time and say, hey, does this suck? Is this something you want to see? Is this something you could sell? And, most of the time they're like, oh, hey, yeah, we like this. Sometimes they're like, did you know that somebody else did something similar to this 2 years ago? Or, I don't like this middle part. Yeah. And at that stage, I can make a lot of the changes preemptively without having to do major rewrites at the end, which I know people who do that, and it sucks for them.
I would imagine that's a lot of work, and of course, the plotting would be the way to go rather than the panther part of it. And, for me anyway, because I'm a planner, I'm very methodical anyway in my radio career, so I would probably be a plotter just like you are if I decide to write a book. We have to get out of here. When we come back, we have a lot more to go over with Laura. Laura Bickle, everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Your ideas, work, and creativity that make it your yard. At ACE, we're here to help. with hoses and sprinklers to nurture growth. Gardening tools for the shape of good things to come.